150. Torah 158. Let's go. Okay, now the Rebbe started that the request of the Yidden in time of Golus, if we would only be like brothers. Because during the time of Beis HaMikdash, the Jews were called Man Achai V'Rei, they were called brothers of Hashem. So he says there were two Kruvim. Kruvim were big face, little face. And he says on the throne is a Demus Kamari Adam. It says, how is it possible to have it in the image of Hashem on the throne when Hashem doesn't have any images whatsoever? So he says that the Adam is the level of Ramach, Mitzvah Saseh, Shasal, Mitzvah Leisas, and so on. So he says, second column 158. That's the way Torah is Lamaila. The established B'Torah the Bria, which is the Torah before us, because Talmud is a level of Bria. We learned already many times, there's different levels of Torah. There's Torah as Chochmasi Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's in the level of Atzilus. Then you have the level of Gemara, which is the world of Bria. And then you have a level of Torah that is called Hashem's toy, so to speak, that he plays with every day, that's even higher than Chochmah. But the question is, how do we bring Torah from that level, Ramach Evonim of Hashem, which is Atzilus, how do we bring it down into the world? So therefore he says, Tzorach liyasei tzimtzum. It has to be through the level of tzimtzum. What's the level of tzimtzum? V'zeh shomer azal tzimtzum shchinosu min ba'dei Aaron. It says in the Medrash and the Gemara that Hashem contracted his Shekhinah between the two poles of the Aaron. The Aaron had two poles on the side that they carried it with. So the Shekhinah was limited between those two poles. And he says, what does that mean? Because that's the place where Rashi says from the Medrash that the voice of Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, that he limited himself. And this level is called Kruv Apizutre. That's one of the Kruv, which is the small face, that's the Adam HaKotan. Commercial cotton, Shigili, B'mechin Shalem, Tzumtzum Yesim, Adam Gadol. A younger child has a much more limited maturity and understanding than an adult. 1 second. So when you speak about the Kruvim, one big face and one little face, it's obviously not physical. Yeah, it was physically like that, but what it means in the spiritual sense, there's a level of Yuweyim et Samtzim, the Seichel, into a level of small face, and he says Kruv Echamikatza, which is Amshacham Mulmayla Lamatam. So therefore, in the level of Kruvim, which is the level of Atzilus, by the way, there had to be this tzimtzum to allow Elokus to come down. So in other words, like this. In order for the Shekhinah to come down, there has to be the Aved of the Yidden. There has to be the Sirusa del Sata. What is the Sirusa del Sata? That's the level of his Baininus and Shema with Mesidas Nefesh. But
it was between the poles or between Kruvim?
The Kruvim were between the poles.
The Kruvim are on the top.
And where are the poles?
The poles are on
the side. So now, if this is the Odin, and you have the poles here, and the Kruvim are here, so the Kruvim are between the poles. That's where the Shekhinah mi bein shnei HaKruvim, right? Between the two Kruvim is where Moshe Rabbeinu heard the sound from. But it has to be a level of Tzimtzum. So there's Apirat, it's the Zutra, the small face, which means a limited Seichel, the way Seichel comes into Chochmah of Atzilus, comes limited into Bria, and Yitzir Nasiya. And the second one is the level of his Mesidas Nefesh Shebechut. And v'ayno ayidei Shmal is bein Eich Havaya Echad. The way Hashem is one. Hani Havaya Lo Shanisi. Rak Sha'am and Vaya Elam. Hashem just with slight dibur, tzimtzum, He created the world. L'chein al yedei his bein nizum. Through how does he? The Alter Rebbe is explaining how does the Yid come to Mesiras Nefesh? He comes to Mesiras Nefesh through his beininess to realize the world is really nothing. The only thing that exists is Elokus, and therefore his whole being is to be connected to Elokus. Like it says in the famous Medrash that Rebbe brings on, and it's a Medrash that Rebbe always quotes in Yud Aleph Nissen. There's a mashal of a guy comes in to the king's palace, and the king's palace there's dukes and nobles and all these big machers, and then you have the king himself. So this guy comes into the palace, says, "Oh, I want this noble, I want this guy, this duke, I want this guy, this officer." There was one smart guy. He said, "No, Malka, I want the king. Don't give me this garbage. Why should they take the side things? They can get the king himself." He said, "What's Mesiras? What's this baininess? Why do I need all this junk of the world? I can have the Eibishter himself."
That's what the Alter Rebbe said.
Yeah, I want you. I don't want your Gan Eden. I don't want your Olam Haba. I want you. That's what the Alter Rebbe said it on. I don't want with you, I don't want your Gan Eden, I don't want your Olam Haba, I want you. Therefore we know the Yidden are the Hashem is the Chosin, the Jews are the Kala. What's the level of Kala? Kala, the root of it is Kaleis HaNefesh, the longing of the soul. Why are Jews called Kalasi, the Kala of Hashem, the bride of Hashem? Because the Yidden have this longing and desire to Hashem. To elevate itself from Bria to Nasiya, so he says like this: one kruv is a level of his baininess to go out to Hashem, to become one with Hashem, and the other kruv is a lukus coming down. That our eyes are elevated to Hashem. So therefore, what's us looking at Hashem that causes Hashem to look at us? Like it says, Eini Hashem elakachaba. Hashem looks at the Yidden. Is a level of Seviv Kolalmin. Shemak which covers is the encompassing level on top of both. Meaning like this: you have the Aron, then you have the cover of the Aron, and then you have the Keruvim on top of the cover. So it's all the level of Makif. Because inside the Aron is the Lucha, it's the Sefer Torah, whatever, different opinions. But the bottom line is that the covering of the Aron and the Keruvim, that's the level of Makifim. So he says, what's the whole connection over here? When a person has his baininess in Elokus, that causes Elokus to be revealed, to come down, to be mitzamtim himself, to limit himself, to bring Torah down here. Huh?
It's a crown.
What crown?
The
No.
edge of.
That's on the Shulchan. Zer Zav. I don't think so. Whatever. It says in the pasuk that the Keruvim, the wings of the Keruvim faced upward. The wings went up. And then Vayechi to lazim b'yema 3 times a day. It says the Zayah like this: the Keruvim went right, the wings went up. But the Zayah says 3 times a day, the wings went up. I mean, the 3 times of davening, the wings of the Keruvim went up. Peter Sharamaz and the Ramaz and the Zayah says, in the 3 tefillahs of every day, that's when the Keruvim went up.
And they're facing each other? Or?
Yeah, when the Jews behaved, they faced each other.
And at the time of Daven, the wing went up?
The Gashmut, they went up. They moved.
That's what it says.
That's what it says in the book. Nobody was there to see it. But it's obviously spiritual. Nobody, even the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur didn't see it. But that's what it says. It went up. And therefore they go up biyal l'mayla b'atzilas. V'zel sol can get fire. That their wings went up. What does it mean? Shaydei said it is ava v'yir shabi Yisrael. Through the ava and yir, which are called wings. Right now, the Rebbe says in Tanya, what does ava and yir do? They're the wings that make the mitzvah fly up. You have love is the right wing, left is fear is the left wing. It makes it go up to Atzilas. And then, okay, skip until 3 lines to the end of the page. Vazayin Yikroim Adam Gadol. Then, when it goes up, then it's called the Apis Ravid of it, the big face. Kivin She'elim Latzilas. Asheir V'chayav V'gamer Echad B'heim. Because in Atzilas, Hashem and the Eris and the Kelim are one. Therefore, Tefillah Lashon Chibur. Davening means connection. He says like this. So what's the whole union of the Keruvim? There's this Beininus, Momato Lamaila, that goes up, which brings Elokus down. And then there's a second aspect of elevating everything to Atzilus. And then Atzilus is the big face. Atzilus is above Tzimtzum. Bria is already Tzimtzum. Atzilus is that level. And davening means connection. If you glue a kli cheres, in other words, what's the ultimate concept of davening? That a Jew should be elevated to Atzilus. And that's why you have the stages of davening until you finally come to Shmona Esrei, which is standing bittul, feet together, no movement, no nothing. That's the level of Atzilus. So the ultimate goal of davening is to become elevated, to become glued with Atzilus. And there's an interesting thing. You have his kashrus and his chabrus. Kasha means knotted. When you take two things and you tie them together, there's two separate things connected. When you glue something, it's not two things connected, now it's one thing. It's a much deeper level of connection, which is tefillah chibur, than the level of iskashrus.
It's a physical reaction and chemical reaction.
And